Hey, my name is Andrea and welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to show you how to make one of my favorite recipes for canning apple butter. I love to eat apple butter on toast, but lots of people eat on pork as well. The recipe I like to use is from the book Canning in the Modern Kitchen by Jamie DeMent. It has a lot of really good canning recipes in it. So to start off, you have to weigh out 4 pounds of apples for a single recipe. Here's just what 4 pounds of apples looks like on the scale. In this video, I am going to be doubling the recipe for our family as we do eat a lot of apple butter. Next is to wash the apples. So to wash the apples, all I do is I fill the sink with a little bit of water, take one of these little scrubbies, scrub all the dirt off of it there. I'm going to be peeling the apples anyways, but I just like to get as much dirt off as possible, and then I just put it in a bowl of some water to rinse whatever dirt might be still left behind. Some of these apples are absolutely massive, especially this one right here. That's 2 hands of mine. It's pretty large, one hand there. So here I'm going to show you 2 different ways to peel apples. I have a Johnny Appleseed peeler, which is my favorite way to peel the apples. But a lot of these apples were way too big to peel just with a Johnny Appleseed peeler. They wouldn't even fit on the peeler. So some of them I have to peel them by hand anyways. You can see how convenient the Appleseed peeler is. It literally takes out the core, peels it, and cuts it all at once there. And some of the bigger ones, just gonna have to hand peel there. After the apples are all peeled, I just have to chop up all the apples that I had to hand peel. I just cut out the core first and then chop them up into about 1 inch by 1 inch pieces. Okay, so now that all the apples are peeled and washed and chopped up right here, I'm just going to add them to the pot there. For a normal recipe, you would be adding 2 cups of water to it. I've doubled my recipe because we need a lot more apple butter there. So I just added 4 cups of water there. Then you're going to turn on your stove to a medium heat and wait till the apples get soft. This sometimes takes about 10 to 20 minutes. So I'm just going to keep it on the heat, pop a lid on, and wait till they're softened, occasionally stirring. I see some steam rising, so I'm just going to give it a quick stir there. Pieces of the seed there. Pop the lid back on and keep that heat in. Now, while you're waiting for your apples to cook, you're going to get your canning equipment ready. This involves filling the pot with water, washing your jars with hot soapy water, and then I put my jars, after I've washed them, in the oven at 275 degrees Fahrenheit. And I keep them in there until we're ready to go to can up the apple butter. But the jars do have to be in there for a minimum of 10 minutes to be sterilized properly. For this recipe, it takes 1/2 pint jars. This is typically what I put my apple butter in anyways. So for one recipe, you'd need 6 1/2 pint jars. For a double like I'm doing, I'm going to be using 12 1/2 pint jars. Jars are now all in the oven and in there to sterilize. And the rings I just set aside on a paper towel until I'm ready to use them. The apples are starting to boil up here a bit. So they should be soft pretty soon here. It does take a while for the apples to cook down. Yeah, pretty soon here. So for canning lids, I'm just going to prepare my canning lids now while I'm waiting. So I use 4 jars now for canning lids. I used to use Bernardin's. They're both good, but I find the seals on 4 jars are a bit thicker than the newer Bernardins, so I prefer to use these. The difference with the new Bernardins is you don't need to have your lids in hot water on the stove simmering before use, whereas 4 jars you do, but I don't find that to be a huge issue. Lids are in the pot until we need them. I'm just gonna check to see if the apples are soft. Here it looks like they are soft enough, so I'm gonna use my immersion blender to blend them until they're smooth. You can also use a food processor or a regular blender if you do not have immersion blender. Next, you're gonna add 4 cups of sugar. Here I'm adding 8 cups because I doubled the recipe. Then you're gonna add 2 teaspoons of cinnamon. I usually use heaping teaspoons. I'm putting in 4, obviously, because the recipe is doubled. And next will be also a 1/4 teaspoon of cloves. Now you're going to want to keep on mixing in all the sugar and spices until the sugar is all broken down and mixed in. Now that I've stirred until all the sugar's dissolved and everything's added in, I'm just going to put my splash guard on because I did turn it up to medium-high heat. It takes about 25 to 30 minutes for it to thicken before you put it in the jars. So must stir consistently while it's on a medium-high heat until it is thickened. You'll know when it's thickened when it sticks to the back of the spoon. I'm going to attempt to check it. It's splashing quite good, so I don't want to really get burnt. Okay, looks like the apple butter is finally ready. You can see how it is mounding on the spoon and staying in place. If it was not ready, it would be liquidy and falling off the spoon like that. Now it's finally jar time. Okay, so now I have my hot jars, my hot apple butter, and I'm just gonna jar them up here. I like to use a little bowl just to catch any drips there. You fill it up 1/4 inch from the top. I usually do to the bottom rim there. These big soup labels are pretty good for these jar sizes. They almost fill up 1 full jar. Now the jars are filled, I'm just going to wipe the rims. That way you don't have anything on the rims that are going to prevent your jar from sealing. So after I finish wiping the jars, I'll tap the sides of the jars to make sure there's no air bubbles. Looks like they're all good. So now I'm going to use my magnetic tool to grab the lids from the hot pot and put the lids on the jars. Now I'm going to start putting the rings in the jars. I do like to use a hot pad to hand tighten them because the jars are hot, so I don't want to burn my hands. So I use this to hold the jars in place while I hand tighten them. You don't want to tighten them too much, just enough that they're hand tightened. Then I now will take this tongs tool to lift the jars and put them into my pot. The water's been already boiling, so I took off the canning lid. Not quite a full double batch, being 12 jars, but I did get 11 jars out of that. Now I have all 11 jars in there. I'm going to replace the lid and wait till it starts boiling. Once it starts boiling, then you're going to start the timer for 10 minutes if you're 1,001 feet above sea level or less. If you're over that, you're going to adjust it by 5 minutes. For us, it's 1410 feet above sea level, so we process our apple butter for 15 minutes. Here is a chart from the book. This is just an elevation chart, so for the top is for water bath canning. Once the timer's done, you take the lid off, you turn the stove off, and you leave the jars in the water for 5 minutes to let it settle before moving the jars to a dry towel. So last but not least, the one thing that you need to do is after the jars have come out of the canning pot, you have to let them sit there for at least 24 hours. This allows time for the lids to seal and everything to settle down before they're ready to move there. You'll know that if the jars have been sealed, if you see that little indent and it's bubbled up, that means the jar hasn't sealed yet. But this one, say you see that the indent is down and you can't press on it, there's no give, that means this jar is sealed. So I usually do the tap method, so if you go like that, it doesn't sound hollow, but this one does. So that's how you can kind of tell if they've sealed or not, but leave them until 24 hours later before moving them. Here's what it all looks like after it's done. I had a little extra, so I got to enjoy some on some fresh homemade toast. It was absolutely delicious, and the kids enjoyed it as well. Okay, so here's the next day. The jars have been sitting for a while. Let them settle. I do not just store these jars like this. I prepare them so they can be stored properly, and so I know if the jars do unseal, this is what I do. So I take off the lid, and just to double check, I can lift it by the lid so it is sealed. What I do, because sometimes when jarring it up, they can still be sticky, I take a wet paper towel, I wipe the rim there. See, got some stuff from the rim there. And then I take a dry paper towel and I dry it really well on both sides. I know a lot of canners might shake their head and say, you store it with the lid off. That way you know if it's sealed, and then store your rings separately. I've never had an issue keeping my rings on the jars, but I don't put them on all the way. I make sure it's completely dry, and you can see there's some give. So the other day when I made my other video for what I've canned for this season, I noticed that one of my mixed berry jars, unfortunately, wasn't sealed anymore. So it did have the lid on, but when I go downstairs to my canning room, I double stack them as well, but I occasionally do the tap test on them. So all these have sealed because they all don't sound hollow, and the indent on the top is down, so that means it's sealed. So that's just what I do. I'm gonna go quickly ahead here. Wipe with a wet, wipe with a dry, check the jar, make sure it's for sure sealed, and do the same with the ring. And then after I'm done all that, then I just bring it down to the basement and I store it downstairs. It's not in a cool room, but it is in the basement in a cupboard. It has done really well over the while. I don't have exactly enough storage space to have a cold room for storage, but the space I do have does work. The next thing I do after, I'll do the rest of these later, but the next thing I do after I've dried off the lid, wiped it all off, and done all that is I label them. I have this Brother label maker. It's a P-Touch H110. And all I do is I put, right there you can see apple, butter, label it. Yesterday was November 19. So I put November 19, comma 25 for the year. I hit print there. Because I made so many jars, I can hit 9. It prints 9 labels all at once. This way I know what is in the jar and what date it was made. So I use first in, first out. So whatever jars were made first are the ones that were used first. So I just cut them all, place them on top of the jars, and then you can just peel off the sticky label, and right in the label section I just put apple butter. There you have it. Apple butter is one of the things that I love to give for Christmas presents. They're good for teachers' presents as well. So right before Christmas break, my kids, teachers in school, they usually get a little canning gift bag. Instead of me going out and buying some present for the teacher they may or may not like. Everybody loves canning, so I give them some canning. One of the teachers absolutely loved it, emailed me and thanked me because apple butter was one of her favorite things, and she has not had a homemade apple butter for a very long time, and she was very thrilled to get it. So I usually put some sweet and some savory things in my little packages for the teachers. So I believe one year I did a little thing apple butter. There was some bread and butter pickles and maybe a jar of salsa or something like that. That's why I love to can in these small jars, because they're perfect gift size jars as well. So there you have it. That is how I store my apple butter from start to finish, how I make it, how I can it, how I jar it, and how I put it away. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you want to see more videos like this, hit that subscribe button and like above. We'll see you on the next one. Thank you for watching.